Ready?
We'll start the meeting. Okay. The meeting, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, all right? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Catherine, you have a roll call? You have a...
I do have a roll call. Attending members today are Beth Waterman, Bruce Barry, Caleb Frank, MJ Reese, Catherine Del Tufo, and Robert Cruikshank, and Angel Molina are on Zoom.
And we also have Mark Lody
Mark
from the
Lody.
zoning board, Robert Drake from the town board, and Roger and Jan.
Robert,
Um,
ask for it back when you're done.
Okay, let's start up with the approval of the minutes. I sent the minutes out today, email address, you can have a chance to look at them. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Second by MJ. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Great. And thank you, Catherine.
There's nothing she can do for us.
Okay. Now, there's just a couple, I mean, there are a lot of membership items, but I'll just mention, first of all, that the table at the bank has been extended through the month of February. And,
Not due to its, what it is, but due to the fact that they didn't have anybody else to put it on the table.
right, so we're there for 2 months.
We go two.
Yeah,
The end of February, so just end of next week.
I believe so. At the end of December, we kind of organized ourselves into smaller groups, into committee groups. And we have been meeting in small groups. And coming tonight, we're just gonna bring everybody up to speed on what's been happening. We don't have a guest speaker tonight. We're just really trying to make progress on our initiatives here. So let's start with, oh good, here comes Mary. Here comes Mary Herman joining her. Yeah. Mary, we have Angel and Robert on Zoom. Okay, wait, sit there. That's chair is just a coat hanger for Bruce's coat.
Someone else came in. Oh, no, you're good. Mark, you're here.
Better. I don't know that we need to do this in the order that it's presented. I think, Bruce, why don't you start, because you are definitely the most prepared. Bruce and Caleb have prepared a report on the electric vehicle charging initiative.
Okay, so if anybody wants a folder to look at, there's some extra ones here, but I just do leave them back if you don't have them. What we have done is a two-pronged effort here. One, investigating the purchase or rental of EV chargers for town, and the other is looking for grants and initiatives to help pay for these EV chargers. I kind of took charge of the checking into companies that supply the equipment or supply services for the equipment, and came up with about 3 or 4 scenarios. I say 3 or 4 because I just came up with a new scenario which I never even thought of before. But if you look in these folders, these blue folders I gave you, on the left-hand side, there's something called EMC EV Charging. And this is a company, it's a turnkey company that handles every project phase from site assessment, as you can see, reads here, procurement, incentives, management, installation, as well as post-service and warranty management. I'm sorry, there you go. And as they say, it makes it a seamless experience to get your charging network operational. It is costly though, because they're handling everything from soup to nuts. They're getting the initiatives, they're getting the tax breaks, they're getting the equipment set up, they're getting the electrician, all of that. As we have discussed before, there's 3 levels of, actually there's 4 levels of EV chargers. There's level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1, level 2, level 3. They just handle level 2 and level 3 chargers. Level 1 charger, by the way, for your information, is a charger that you plug into your home outlet. It's very slow. It's nothing that we would ever use in town unless the guest is staying for a week. So we're looking at level 2 chargers because level 3 chargers, as you can see from this sheet, and you can see on the next page what that level 3 charger looks like. It's a huge unit. It charges very quickly, like in about 20 minutes for a full charge to your car. It's $196,550.
For one?
For one, yes. These are usually put in places such as throughways. The state sometimes puts them in places. Usually not businesses, it's just too expensive. It's mostly a state or private company that goes into the charging business that puts these kinds of chargers in. But I wanted to include this just so we have an understanding of what the difference in the costs are. The other level 2 chargers they have 2 of them. One is called a flow charger, and that you can see that picture on the next staple piece of paper on the left-hand thing. And those are on pedestals. I'm going to hold it up for the camera. Those are on pedestals, and will charge a car. We'll charge it at about 25 to 30 miles per hour. So this kind of charger is great for town because we want people to come into town, be able to charge, but yet not feel rushed to get back to the charger to unplug. And they could shop and have dinner and so on and so forth, and get probably 30 to 60 miles of charge on their car until they go to the next location. So this scenario is the best scenario. This charger, which you see in this picture, the core, runs about $22,000 for each pedestal, which has 2 chargers.
This is still the turnkey provider.
This is still the turnkey provider, yes. And then the other option, or the other manufacturer they offer is EV charger, charge point charger, which is a very popular charger. And a charge point charger system would be $26,104 for its complete installation. That all being said, by the way, at the end of each one of these pages is a price sheet of how it all breaks down at the back of each page. You take these home and you can look at them at your leisure, but all the information is there about these chargers.
So they submitted a quote to you.
They submitted a quote.
You asked them to
Right.
estimate, and they
The next one, I'm going to make this quick because we have a lot to cover tonight, but there's on the right-hand side of your folder in the back is Kaylee Chabra. She's with a company called Autel. And Autel has a new system which we haven't seen before. It's a AC charger, like the Flow and the charge point charger, which will give you 70 miles per hour of charge for $7,200. And that's a very good price for this charger. Now again, it's just for the charger. except for EMC, which does the entire job for you. Autel just gives you the hardware, which means you need to put in the infrastructure for it. So you'd have to put a foundation in, you'd have to hook the electricity up to it, so on and so forth. And they have a floor stand charger. It's 19.2 kilowatts. It's a very fast charger for an AC charger. Again, all the specs are here, and the price sheets are here as well for their chargers. She also gave me prices for their high-speed charger, which ran about $30,000. So, but again, I think we need, my feeling is high-speed charger is totally unnecessary in our town. That we go with something that people can get a charge, but not, necessarily a full charge for. Unless, of course, they have a hybrid EV, which uses gas also. If you have a hybrid, in a couple of hours you can charge fully with a hybrid. So that's the difference between a full EV and a hybrid EV. Then what I thought was the best deal was from ChargePoint themselves, the company ChargePoint. And ChargePoint has an offer. It's a prescription program which includes installation and hardware for $2,400 per year for each pedestal. Now, when you think about that, $2,400 a year is not very much. We would need at least two pedestals, one for Phoenicia, one for Pine Hill, which would bring us to about $5,000. And they would update the programs as newer models are made available, and they have a full warranty service involved, included with that. So in other words, if 3 years down the line, or even 1 year down the line, they come out with a new model that's a better charger, they would swap it out and put a new charger in. All we're paying is $2,400 a year for each pedestal, which charges 2 cars at the same time. They also mentioned that there's tax credits, which Caleb will go through, and incentives from NYSEG. NYSEG's offering 50 to 90% cost of the electrical work with some of the programs that they have. So that breaks it down to those 3. Now I said there was a 4th, and the 4th I found while I was traveling this past week a firehouse in Kennebunk that had a charger on the wall, free for the public. It happened to be solar powered. This charger costs about $1,500 to buy. It is a charger that only could be used for free because there's no infrastructure on the charger to take credit cards or any kind of programs, or, cards that you would use to use these chargers. All the others that I have mentioned are adaptable to anything that you want to charge for this charging session. You can be as little as nothing, or as much as 30 cents a kilowatt hour, or you can charge by the hour, so that you're getting some money back on the electricity that you're spending. I've been finding a lot of these around in towns, municipalities, or perhaps in business areas where the business people are paying whatever the electricity charge is and paying for the hardware itself. But again, there's grants available for these as well, because this is a professional unit. It's called a high power unit. And again, it will charge you 25 miles per hour. There is this revolter, which you'll talk about. There's a cooperation with some outfit which you know about that I don't, that helps pay for this, and how they collect the money for this to help it pay for itself. So those are basically the four options. I know I threw a lot at you at once, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Question. I think when you recommend the CT 4000, okay, it says full motion color LCD display instructs drivers and supports dynamic updates of custom brand videos and advertisements. Would it
Yes,
be advertising?
absolutely. You can advertise on these things. There's a screen. It's an LCD screen. And you can put whatever advertisements you want on as well.
The income that would help defray the cost.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, there's ways, what we want to do is present this to the town board at some point in the near future, I hope. And then just to give you all the information about that so you can make a decision, the town board can make a decision themselves on, what do you need, or something?
Oh, Caleb had something to say.
Make a decision on how they want to implement this, if they want to implement it. I was just listening to a piece the other day that was talking about how many visitors the Catskills are getting per year. It's enormous. It's greater, they said, than the Grand Canyon, or I don't know, but the numbers are absolutely crazy of how many people are driving down 28. And so many of those people are driving EVs and are looking. I know as an EV driver myself, when I go to find someplace to stay or go, I look to see if there's EV infrastructure available. Because right now it's a little thin. In the future, it won't be quite as much of an effort to try to find these places. But when people start to think about where they're going to go, they also want to know where they're going to be able to plug in. And I think the town of Shandaken needs to be that place for them. And it should be in the business districts, not someplace off in a park somewhere, but in the business districts, so that it helps, it gives the person who's charging something to do, and also spend their money in our town. So, yeah.
Two questions, if I could, which you might not have an answer for, but they're things that maybe collectively we can find an answer to. The first one is, just the other day I was at the Plaza Diner in New Paltz, which has, I want to say it's like 10 Tesla brand chargers. Do you happen to know, anyone happen to know, did Tesla subsidize that, or was that a town, was that a municipal project? I'm curious. That's of course a throughway town.
Tesla in the beginning, as far as I know, now don't take my word for the last word, but in the beginning was subsidizing.
Okay.
For instance, in Canada, we traveled up to Canada, and one of the national parks up there had a whole row of Tesla chargers, level 2 as a matter of fact, not level 3, but level 2 chargers, which are the slower ones. And that was all paid by Tesla. I don't know if I don't think they're doing that anymore.
But we have that at the Emerson. We have a bank of
We
Tesla.
have a bank
Right.
of Tesla chargers at Emerson, which is supposedly for guests only, which is fine.
Right, of course. I mean, yeah, it's
Absolutely perfect.
helpful for them.
The good news is that this week Tesla has announced through a meeting at the White House that they're going to be opening up some of their chargers to other vehicles as well. And it's just a software switch and an
Right.
adapter. That's it. So that will be very helpful.
The other question, which I can do some digging myself here, but I'm just curious, is in effect, what power is closest to the available parking lots? I mean, in the case of Pine Hill, it is actually a municipal parking lot. I see a lot of these are looking for 200 amp service.
Right.
We, as a rule, we pay for the lighting. The town pays for the lighting. I have no idea, and I would hazard to guess that it's probably not 200 amps, although it could be. I don't.
200 amps is like a normal household amperage. So the utilities here, I mean, we wouldn't be able to power necessarily. We may have more problems powering a level 3 charger, which is 50 kilowatt of power up to 350 watts per power. That's an awful lot of amperage. And sometimes you have to have special transformers and so on and so forth. So that's why it gets so expensive in those higher end chargers. But you shouldn't have any problem getting 200 amps of service at any of the locations that we are choosing. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking like the straight logistics, right? That if we were trying to put a charger in the Pine Hill parking area, where would it come from?
Right, it would just come right to the pole. As a matter of fact, you know, some of these chargers as well, if you do want to save money, if you want to buy them outright, can mount right to the pole.
Okay.
It's not as convenient, because the pole is not always where you want it to be.
Right.
So-
But if it's not a very long run, that's obviously presumably a lot easier.
Yeah.
I had a question. If it is connected to a business, so the business's electricity is the charger, but all of the money go to the business, or does it go to the town?
It can, if that's the way they want to choose to charge on it. You know, it's like, let's say Brios, or which is in the middle of town, say, okay, I'll put the chargers in. I'd love to put them in my lot. Yes, they could collect the fees from it and help pay for it. But I'm thinking of this more rather than a personal or business incentive system. It would be a town system, and that it would be something that the town would be totally in charge of. That saves that kind of problem of who's going to get the money. The town can get the money. But yeah, so that's my part of it. And
Jan has a question.
yeah, Jen.
Just picking on what Robert said, so if it was hooked up to the lights, then it's, the town lights, then it's part of the lighting district. But it doesn't draw down a lot of, I mean, what's the cost, I guess, for the town, and how does it get recouped, since that's a
The
direct.
cost is per kilowatt hour. Let's say the town is paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's not necessarily hooked up to the lights, it's just hooked up to the grid.
To the
So it's
grid.
not like it's part of, you know, you're plugging into one of the lights on the poles. You're actually setting up your very own service with this.
Right.
Now, the town would then, there would be a meter on that, and the town would then pay whatever the meter is reading out for that. As I said, this other system that I was showing you was actually hooked up to solar, but that's another whole level that the town could look into if they wanted to. If they wanted to put in the solar cells to help charge that, then you're cutting the cost of that down to maybe half of whatever that kilowatt charge is.
And that's the one you can have advertising on?
That's a lot.
Is that the one you
No.
had?
No,
Oh.
that was one of the other ones, the level 2 charger.
The reason I was asking is that the community center went all electric, and we got a fabulous rebate from NYSERDA, and then they got all their money back, because they increased their surcharges, they increased the, kilowatt hours. I mean, just, we're right back to where we were with gas.
You're talking nice active.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
they did. So but this may not be a big drawdown of,
Well, it would almost assuredly be its own independent
yeah.
account from a financial standpoint. It wouldn't be charged to a lighting district. It would be its own independent account if it was a municipal service.
But I was imagining if the town were to vote on this, they'd want to see the model that shows that you're either end up neutral or you make money on it.
Potentially, I mean, where I see this conversation, its next step is honestly probably being within the comprehensive plan, in the component, in sort of the guise of one, the sustainability aspects of the comprehensive plan, and two, the tourism aspects of the comprehensive plan. It has draws to both of those, of obviously the sustainability side, which is kind of more within your obvious purview.
But the business side is an important side as well.
Right, and the guest experience and being part of sort of the Catskills as an economic region. And so I think that's probably part of the track of that conversation is you've done a bunch of great research, you've got a bunch of the numbers here, then how does that fit within the broader context of what the town is collectively hoping to do, which is the comprehensive plan, and then those comprehensive plans go to the respective entities, in some cases the town board, in some cases planning, zoning, also private individuals who are all, how does my group fit within the confines of that plan? I think that's probably the track that takes, or one of them anyway.
That could be a hybrid of both. So,
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
You can have a private and
Yep.
public,
Filling a need, right? So,
filling a need,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
All right, shall we hear from Caleb?
So I have the spreadsheet on my laptop, and I tried to connect it to my hotspot, but it wasn't cooperating before, so I'm hoping it'll connect. It wasn't,
Let me just ask while you're setting up,
yeah.
if Angel and Rob, Angel has your hand up, do you have a question, Angel?
Yeah, Robert had his hand up first, so let him
Oh.
speak first, and then I have a comment for Jan as well, just in general.
Okay. Robert?
Great, can you folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Apologize for not being there in person, thank you for making it so we could attend this. The information that you put together is super interesting, thank you very much, Bruce and Caleb and the UB team. I have a lot of interest in it. The two questions that sort of come to the top of the list is there a minimum time for charge for the private a year plan?
It's 5 years.
5 years. And is there a revenue share opportunity? Like, can we make money as people are charging? Or?
Yes, that is just set up with software, so that if somebody comes up to charge, they use their charge point card or they use a credit card to charge their fee on the charger. And that could go directly to us or to ChargePoint, and then ChargePoint would then reimburse us for it.
It seems like we could take like a revenue neutral approach, and then just put this out there as an idea where we're really trying to recoup the $2,400 a year for the platform, and otherwise, it's a community service, just as one way to look at it.
Yeah, it is. I think that the attractive part of the prescription program is that it includes the installation and hardware for each pedestal, for each $2,400 pedestal. And so that's 2,400 a year times 5 years, and that's what it comes out to be. But again, you're not responsible for the maintenance of it. If we own a pedestal ourselves, it breaks, we need to have it maintained. Of course, we would get a maintenance program with that, which maybe another $1,000 a year or something for the maintenance program. But yeah, that's in my opinion, this prescription program seems to be the most logical for the least. You get the most out of it for the least amount of money.
Okay.
That's great, and I'll just add one more anecdotal thing. Another announcement that came out of the White House this week, I believe, was that if charging infrastructure is funded, then there will be a minimum service availability contract associated with it. So, 99.99% availability of the thing, so it's only down the maximum of, 53 minutes a year or something like that. Because there have been cases where chargers are putting in, and consumers are finding they get to the charger and the charger's not working. And they were counting on it working, as you can appreciate. So us being able to say that, we have a service contract that, service guarantee is going to be helpful and I'm pretty useful.
This is all new to this country and to the world, and it's like it's growing pains, and this infrastructure is going through its growing pains, and they're solving it as we speak. Maybe not as fast as we want them to, but it's a reality, and they're going to have to meet the challenge. So yes, Electrify America, which is one of the companies, one of the biggest companies who has superchargers or fast chargers, is going through those growing pains, and they're swapping out equipment left and right now because they're using first generation equipment, and now they're swapping it out with second and third generation equipment.
Okay, so I think we're gonna move along, because I think Caleb's got his
He's got it.
screen up. Angel, do you want to make your comment?
Yes, I'll be quick. To Jan, we were thinking, and we had discussed this previously, was the idea of installing these chargers and having it be complimentary to visitors in the area, especially in the commercial zones where they can go in and shop and sort of use it. And what we would probably have to figure out is how to initially fund it through maybe the businesses ponying up the money in order to pay for for the program in its initial, stages, whether it's the first 5 years or whatever, and then seeing how that goes. I do like the idea of having the subscription, because just being, if we were to own the equipment, then we would have to find someone who's qualified to fix it. Otherwise, whereas the company would already have someone that's qualified, upgrade the equipment. If some knucklehead breaks it, they can fix it right away. So I like that approach better for what we're sort of hearing of.
Okay, thank you. Caleb?
All right, so a lot of this is, specifics about programs. I think it would probably be best to go over generally and then I'll share the,
If you have any difficulty hearing, will you tell me, please? Angel, can you hear?
No, I can't hear.
Caleb, why don't you sit in my chair?
Oh, there you go, you're getting promoted.
And you may have to remove your mask, I don't know.
oh yeah, no, I can do that.
But yeah, I think the computer will pick up your voice better from here.
We can slide the computer closer too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a lot of this is specifics on these programs, so I think it'd probably be best to go over it generally and then share the document, the spreadsheet with everyone. So for something else in a second here, this would be all of access. I looked into 3 different programs. One was the EV Make Ready program, and then it's alternative fuels and electric vehicle recharging property credit. Did you say that again? The EV what?
Make ready.
The Make Ready program, that's the general.
Is that a state program?
Yes, that is. Then there's Charging New York, which is another one, and Zero Emission Vehicle one. So all of these I kept the links to. And interestingly enough, I actually noticed that 2 of them, the Zero Emission Vehicle and the Charging New York, are not currently active. They have rounds of funding that have been closed for this year. And a lot of them did not have detail that would detail about when it would next be, when the next round of funding would be open. And it didn't say that it was officially closed, but it did say that you cannot apply as of now.
I think Michael DRC evaded to that when he said that he won't have the information until the end of March. So that's probably coincides with when these will become active again.
Yeah, that would make sense. So if you do want to make an appointment, probably wait until we can get all of the ones that are going to be active this year. But the 2 ones that are currently active are the alternative fuels and electric vehicle property credit and the EV Make-Ready program. They both generally, the second one covers 50% of the cost, or $5,000, so the lesser of, which would be enough to do a significant chunk of an AC charging system, but definitely would not put a dent in a DC one. So it's clearly designed for the level 2 one. And the next one actually has quite a complicated plan of generally like how radical your plan is to how much it will cover. But generally, it actually decides to sponsor a whole plan to convert your fleets to electric, and then all of the charging and they look a lot into like the light, medium, and heavy duty vehicles, and then all of those, a lot of that I think it's for like town vehicles and things like that. And I will put down these next steps on it, so when you do want to choose one, the first thing that you would do. And one of them is they have these approved contractors that they rely a lot on. So they have a whole network of people who know exactly how to do this, and then they have a link to a website where you will find someone who does this. It's as an approved contractor, and they will be connected with your utility, and then they will get you started. And the next one has the specific, it's an IT 637 form, and that is the, I think you fill out one of these for each charger that you want in your community. That's how you get started.
Okay.
Those
That's
are the
great.
ones that
Are you
are,
going to share this
yes, definitely.
this
And,
spreadsheet with us?
yeah,
Okay,
and I'm talking about
Because
this.
really applying for the funding is important, but we need to get the plan in place first.
And I have links to all of those forms and all of the websites of these.
And,
Thanks for that.
and again, I think some of these plans are applicable to some of the ways that we, in other words, we buy our own system, that's one plan. If we are leasing a system, that might be another plan. So you have to kind of like match the initiatives and the tax breaks to the way that you're installing these EVs. It's not just everything blanket right across the board. I know that 50% or $5,000 is does apply to the. I'm pretty sure it applies to the leasing plan for installation of the electric. You know, doing the infrastructure itself. Great.
Yeah, let's look at that.
What's that?
Those are the two.
Yeah, those are the
Were those programs designed around private applicants or municipal ones?
I believe municipal for the most part.
Those were municipal applicants.
Yes.
Question for Caleb. You know, there's money available for this purpose in the recently passed federal Inflation Reduction Act. Is any of your information access whatever's available in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, a lot of these programs constantly get new funding from different sources, and the Inflation Reduction Act, I think, is going to be funding
Okay.
quite a lot of these for the next round of funding.
And I have another question for Bruce. You mentioned like putting a station in Pine Hill, putting a station in Rios. Like I was driving back from Kingston today, there were caravans of a dozen, 15, 20 cars, one right after the other. As you referenced, the density is, so it's going to take a lot more than just one here and one there. Have you made any estimation of traffic volume, density, need?
No, I haven't been able to, I haven't done that. But ideally, you'd want two of these units in each town. I mean, ideally. But there's no reason why you can't put one pedestal in, and then, you know, 6 months later you find there's this huge demand, or even 3 months later, there's this huge demand, and then put another one in. I think, you know, you have to put your toe in the water and see how it's all working out. But yes, I agree with you.
Okay, I have an announcement here that came from Michael Darcy. It's Ulster County EMC, the Environmental Management Council, meets once a month, and Robert is our representative. They will be meeting, I think, at the end of March.
Yes, I'm signing up for
Yeah, and the county has asked Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress to create a plan for the county called Electric Vehicle Charging Stations. And there's an entire presentation that will be made at that time about what they've determined. And it may be that they will try to come up with some kind of estimate of need, or creating a corridor. You know, this is an important, because this is what the county is doing to facilitate EV charging. So we're planning to attend and learn more at the end of March. So this is an interim report. Stay tuned.
I just have one question, like a timeline. How far out do you think it would be? I mean, roughly speaking, before we actually have these installed in Shandaken area, would it be? Are we talking 6 months? Are we talking?
We're talking
5 years.
Shandaken time.
Shandaken time.
Well, I think
I'm just.
We would hope.
For a goal, where are we looking
within a
for?
year or so, but
So it's like 2 or 3 years. Maybe.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how
I
to.
think it'll be interesting to see what the county,
Yeah,
you know.
that would be
I
a
mean,
good place to
if
start.
maybe they can accelerate it in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, also, if this is a 2 or 3 year time frame,
Multiply.
the batteries in the car batteries get much better, much more efficient and longer. So that's going to be a changing dynamic.
Oh, everything is going to change exponentially. I mean, it's going to be pretty incredible. But I just think that the town of Shandaken should be up to speed with this. You know, and
Definitely.
Well, thank you for bringing all the info, Bruce and Caleb. You're doing a great job. I would like to talk now about our compost initiative and ask Mary to bring us up to date. Mary and I met, as many of you know, but maybe not all of you, we applied for a grant to create a town-wide compost collection program that was an expansion of what is currently being done by James Amento. And he was estimating that he's presently serving about 30 households, and he could serve up to 70 households, removing approximately 3 pounds of organic waste a week. It would reduce, it would save or reduce 1 metric ton of carbon a week that was being created through the anaerobic decomposition of the compost. So we wanted to create this town-wide pickup system and at the same time create an education program for people who want to compost in their backyard. And the idea being that, you know, people, once they learned more about the possibilities, would become more interested in other forms of greenhouse gas reduction. Okay, over to Mary.
So, I called the the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. Beth had originally contacted them to follow up on, they have a 2-part class on composting that they offer once a year. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to connect with the woman who's teaching, who does it. But I went over all of their itinerary, or all the things that they teach, and it was funny because I felt like I got back to where I started. I've always composted, and as I've mentioned, I have a house in Vermont. Vermont last year passed a law that all residents have to compost. You can bring your compost to the local transfer station, and in some of the more densely populated areas, people have started companies. They'll come pick up your compost each week. And it's been an overwhelming success. They've reduced what goes into landfills by 25%. So it's great. So they also offer a master composting class, and I wasn't able to get into their fall one, but I'm on the waiting list for the coming fall 2023. Anyway, this is the circle. Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency and Vermont and Cornell University, they all use the same handbook. It's all the same information. So if we do not get Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency to be able to come in and do this program for us, I was gonna get together with James and see if me and him and maybe get a few other people on board, and we could get it going. And they also show you how to do community composting sites. So it's been great for James at the farmer's market, having the farmer's market in Pine Hill. He's been picking up compost there, and then in the summer he does it in Venetia. But I was thinking maybe if we had a couple of community sites, like one in Venetia, one in Pine Hill, where like his, of course, would be Venetia, but we could just get a lot more people on board with this.
Well, if we have one here at the transfer station, people
Right, and the
can take
transfer
advantage of
station,
it when they bring their recycling
So-
to.
So working with so we have all these options, so working with the town board, I really think that we should be able to get this up and going rather quickly.
Well, I'm hoping that we can have these classes, that they will
Yes.
come and teach these 2 classes. Introduction to composting and then advanced composting at the Pine Hill Community Center in April and May.
Right.
First week of May is when they would teach the advanced class. We just have to book it, get a hold of
Yeah.
them and book it. They also have an annual rain barrel and compost bin sale the 3rd Saturday in May, which is another, you know, once we start this education program, we'll help people figure out how they can purchase these bins or rain barrels if they wish through the county. And what else, Mary? with
I
our,
think that's about it.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? The grant that we didn't get, which was for $10,000,
yes, that's the other point. Yes.
but that was going to pay for a bear-proof container,
Yes,
like a shipping container, right?
correct.
What else was that going to, and for pails as well, right?
Yes,
I
buckets.
mean, there was so much more in the grant, I know, and it was a very thorough.
It was very simple. There was a bear-proof storage container, a new composter, the machine that, because the volume that James is doing now is, you know, he needs another machine if he's gonna increase the volume. And the buckets and 30-gallon and 5-gallon buckets.
Right.
And then some education and so forth. And I have looked into how we can reduce our costs, and there's something called the Barracuda, but it's a bear-proof container that will hold one 30-gallon bucket that we could maybe put inside the chain link fence here. But it still costs $2,000. So the fact of the matter is, whether it's $10,000 or $5,000, we're going to have to raise some money. And Michael Chaffee, who's not here, but he thought, you know, perhaps we could fundraise. And I think that I am willing to put time and effort into trying to fundraise to help create this program. I think it's an important thing for our town and for the CAC, you know, to show some action here, to take it. I think we could send solicitations to businesses, to individuals, and see, and then maybe do a GoFundMe if you feel that this is important.
I think it's important. The only other option for us then is to wait until we can apply for that grant again next year.
Well,
I think we can get started though.
we'll get started with the
Just doing
education.
grassroots kind of stuff and, you know, I'm all for, I kind of think everybody should have some sort of system in their backyard. You
Well,
know?
except in
we know
densely
that bears are a
populated,
problem.
densely populated areas,
Right,
maybe
and-
it's not.
And personally, I have more problems with raccoons than I do with bears.
Yeah.
But I live in Pine Hill, I live in town. There's easier pickings, you know, they kind of pass me by.
Well, I'm willing to try to write a solicitation letter,
Right.
and
Right.
maybe we can discuss it next month when Michael's here. I mean, I think some kind of fun, townwide fundraiser would be an attractive, and it would help if we have these classes set up, you know, and try to encourage people, because many, you know, when I sat out here at the table at the transfer station and talked to people, there were definitely, by far the majority wanted to have a drop-off, but there are other people who do it at home, and, you know, and I want to encourage that also, if that's what they want to do.
It would also put a spotlight on it, and it also help us educate, if that would count as us educating the public on, and that would give us points.
Definitely. I think it's a win-win all around.
And
Jan?
even,
I told Beth, I'm just confessing, I told Beth that I would try to reach out to a couple private foundations that I thought might be interested in this, but it would be much more appealing, because it's a town project, they are logically asking, well, why isn't your town government paying for it?
Mhm.
And, which is a logical question. So if we don't have an answer for, you know, the town can't pay for it, then I think it would be more appealing to a private foundation if we said there was an effort by the community to raise half the money. And then they would match it. I think that would be easier, to make the case.
And you
than
could
just
leverage
ask
it.
for- Yeah, to leverage it.
I agree, and I think the town, I can't speak for the town, but I heard from the supervisor that perhaps the town could help subsidize some
I think
portion.
that would make it easier to raise money from private foundations.
Yeah. I also reached out to a number of funding sources, but I didn't find anything that was gonna help. So if everybody's in agreement that we try to go ahead with this on our own and see what happens, I'll
Does
try to
anyone
write it
have
up.
a contact with, home, their names on it, that they might be willing to donate to us lots of buckets with lids that have their name on it, which advertises them as a supporter.
Okay, look, let's make a
Okay,
list.
okay.
Start making a list of good ideas and people to ask, and we'll talk about it again next month.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And one big component of this is when you consider how many of our residences are Airbnb, and people show up for the weekend, and they don't know anything about this, but if we can incorporate some sort of educational component into, for example, with the Airbnb, every Airbnb is supposed to have a checklist of information, like where to park, where your dog poops and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Incorporate that with which is a huge component of this community now, is Airbnb, but if we could somehow educate these people, come in for a weekend and, buy a bunch of hot dogs and eat half of them and throw them out.
I will be happy to draw up a little brochure of what I do in Vermont, because they have to do it. I have 4
Yeah.
buckets for them, and if they don't do it, they don't get 5 stars.
Well, I just, as an aside, I went to a restaurant last weekend, and they charged extra for food
I
waste.
love this.
It was an all-you-can-eat restaurant, a Korean restaurant in Brooklyn. But if you ordered more food than you could eat, you paid a surcharge, $13 surcharge. What?
Even if you took your extra food home with you.
Well, I don't think they give you doggy bags at an all-you-can-eat restaurant. So, unless you brought your own doggy bag and carried out the food, but no, they charge you if you over-order. Anyway,
That's steep too, $13.
$13, yeah.
Is it prorated to how much you leave on your plate?
I left
You
it
have to
screaming.
We didn't have,
It's a reverse salad bar.
yeah. All right, now, energy. Rob, do you have any report for us tonight?
I do, real quick and brief. Going back to the Ulster County EMC, that you mentioned that the last meeting is canceled because of the snowstorm. The next meeting is Wednesday, so I will be attending and report, some of our more pertinent activities to them. On the energy side, Angel, Bruce, Caleb, myself, anybody else that wants to be participating, please let me know in terms of the energy group. One of the things that came up this week, Beth, you had passed it, and it looks very interesting, is a free commercial building technical assistance program. This is pointed at buildings that are commercial, that in some cases are critical facilities, such as emergency medicine centers, fire, police, hospital, ambulance, also community facilities, for example, the community center. And I'd like to talk to who was speaking before about the conversion that happened at the community center and kind of what that did to the bill. Because effectively what they're doing here is they're offering over the phone to do a quick interview with you for free at no cost. And so you might be one of the people that helps manage these facilities. And they basically ask, what's your electric bin over the last year? What's your fuel bin over the last year? And then they look to see what would it cost to provide you, quote unquote, on-site power. And on-site power can be something as simple as a generator that comes on during an outage when the grid is down so that you still have services. But it can be something a little more elaborate that provides not only power but heat and hot water, and they call that combined heat and power. So I think it'd be interesting to, even if we just continue pulling on that thread about the Pine Hill library, we may not consider critical, but since we've already done the energy audit for it, we've already gotten recommendations that were very reasonable in terms of the payback. I think I'd like to go ahead and contact these folks and see, well, what would they recommend in terms of treating it like a critical facility? What does it take to provide power and heat as backup service? And then if kind of what we get back is interesting, we could put that on our website along with the home energy audit link so that people know that in addition to homes, commercial facilities can participate and get some guidance as well. That's the report.
Thank you so much. Yes. Now, the Government Ops Climate Action Plan Committee, MJ, Caleb, Angel, and me, have not met. But we did have our first meeting with Melanie Patapas which we attended, and we succeeded, thanks to Robert Drake, in getting a resolution passed at the last town board meeting, which was part of our you know, that was the first step. Get the town to approve you're working on the Government Operations Climate Action Plan. So that has been done. So if we could just maybe get together after this meeting for a couple of minutes, and talk about how we get to step 2, which is meeting with the transportation department of our town. And so we'll see if we can find a time and a plan to do that. I know that we're not really moving ahead on the natural resource inventory at this time, but
Well,
you have anything you want to say?
The only thing I have continued to do is do some more research, and I've got an outline of what I hope to be able to create as the inventory. I still am requesting someone who'd be interested in helping me, because I think when I had my kids, I kind of missed out on learning the technology aspect of transferring information from existing data to a document, and how do you find out what you have ability to access or just appropriately give credit to. And it's just a technological thing at this point.
I can work
I
with
just
you.
need to plug things in. So thank you, MJ.
Great, thank you.
Catherine, you know, Route 28 is a scenic byway,
Yes.
and that went in like 2010, something like that. In the course of doing that, we had to compile a list of natural resources. So that was done a number of years ago. It's probably changed slightly, but Doris Bartlett may have that information. But that was done 2010.
Robert,
So I'm the town's liaison to the scenic byway. I do have the last management plan, which obviously is not just Shandaken, it's the 4 towns that are part of the byway.
Right.
That management plan is actually currently in the process of being updated and rewritten, predominantly to include the towns of Hurley and Roxbury. The byway's expanding. I can definitely send you the prior version. The current version is obviously it's being written. It's I'm not sure the level of detail that you're perhaps looking for in this context. It's you know, it's an accurate document, but it's certainly not a list of every plan in the Catskills or anything like that, right? I mean, it's quite specialized to the byway. But I can send you that document easy enough.
Excellent,
I'll do
thank
it
you.
after the meeting. Yeah.
we had talked about and a pollinator pathway project, a local pollinator pathway project, and I had reached out to Woodstock Land Conservancy, but I wasn't able to get in touch with anyone there. But they have an ongoing Zoom. There's one on Thursday. I can send everyone the link if you'd be interested. They're doing this ongoing education project.
Is it the third Thursdays thing? Or was that something we heard about last month that I attended the 3 days after our last meeting? And I can't remember what that was. Never mind. You go on.
I'll send you the link. And I'm not sure having a speaker come and talk to us about pollinator pathway at this point is a really high priority.
Yeah.
I feel like we have these projects that we're working on and that we need to make a little more progress, you know, ourselves. Yes.
I know that technically Onshore is in Boyd School, not Shandaken, but I do think it might be worth mentioning that the Onshore School is trying to put pollinator pathways into the courtyard in the school. So if we did have any education, something like that, maybe if they'd help us, we'd help them in some way.
Yeah, good.
So, it might be.
All right, well, I'll send out that link. And maybe some of us can watch the Zoom, join the Zoom.
A nice way to get started, maybe get a list of plants, you know, and then we can have Joyce post them.
Well, I think actually, buying the seed, you know, if we could get if maybe Woodstock Land Conservancy buys seed from a certain place, from a native nursery, and if we could recommend what to buy, you know.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
More than a list of plants.
Well,
Yeah,
same difference.
yeah.
DEC has a yearly plant sale, and I never know quite the timing on that. But they have their pickup point in New Paltz, and they have a sheet where you can buy plants at a pretty good rate. You can get, you know, a fairly large tree for $5, and at a nursery, of course, maybe 30, 40, 50. But to reiterate your point, whenever you have sort of these, for lack of a better term, loose ends, where you've done a bit of research, but it hasn't necessarily coalesced to a project, if there's information that can be passed out to the town via Joyce, I think that's personally entirely appropriate,
Yeah,
and at least fulfills a little bit of that education mission, even if it hasn't coalesced into a deliverable project per se. So,
right. I definitely want to do that with this composting.
Yeah.
Education and the sale of the bins and the grain barrels and so forth.
Wouldn't Cornell Cooperative Extension be a great partner for the pollinator? Definitely. They also have a
It's a
plan,
good,
annual
yeah,
plan.
that's a good possibility too. But, I mean, the idea is really to get people to mow less, and towns to do less mowing, although I have already spoken to our highway supervisor, and he is obliged by law to keep the sides of the roads clear, so there's not gonna be, so he has to mow, that's part of his mandate. But there are areas, I think, where there could be less mowing perhaps, and certainly in private land. Where they might want to
Last year, my
reduce,
son told us that it's no mow May.
yeah,
I tell people, at least there's no reason to mow in May,
well,
you know.
right.
But grasses aren't the primary pollinator. Grasses are not the primary pollinator.
Grasses are, I mean, there are many plants
Species
that attract pollinators. Many different types of pollinators are insects.
Right, the insects are pollinators.
The insects are
Yeah.
pollinators.
Well, I think my point was grass does not produce a lot of pollen.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
No, they're
that's my point.
trying to create a source of pollen for
There's
insects.
pollen, right?
And
Tell me that during allergy season.
yeah,
I'll have a lot to learn, right?
yeah. Okay, well, one final note here is that we need to get sworn in again by visiting Joyce in her office individually. She's in-
I would double check on that, because I got sworn into the comprehensive plan committee last week, and I asked her about it. And she told me that, no, we were sworn in for the duration.
Whoa.
So-
She
so-
told me we had to swear ourselves in again, but.
Yeah, so I would just double check, because
Is she downstairs?
No.
Are you saying, okay.
But this is not an elective office.
this is a little bit outside, but I believe any new member
Yeah.
needs to be sworn in. But I wasn't re-sworn in on the town board.
It
even-
doesn't expire at the end of the year?
I believe it's for your term, but there are at least
Yeah.
one new member who you do have to be sworn in at least once.
Okay. All right, well, if you haven't been
That's
sworn
my
in.
understanding, but please do check with Joyce on that.
All right,
You know it.
if you.
Don't go downstairs, just smell it.
She actually swears at you.
I think actually you can get the form and get it notarized also. So you could take the form to the bank or something, you don't necessarily have to go to.
Anybody in town hall is a notary.
Yeah, just.
I know, but if Caleb isn't able,
Actually, you know what, there's someone at the school for sure is a notary. The
Yeah.
secretary, the
you just need to
principal,
get the form.
there's
from
definitely someone there.
You could email Joyce and ask her to send you the form.
What is Joyce's email?
Joyce Grant, she's a town clerk.
So look online if you, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
AOL or something.
I can send you her email.
Hotmail?
I think it's Shandaken.us. Something like that.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right, our next meeting will be March 20th at 6:30. If
Thanks for the reminders.
you're welcome, I hope you don't find it annoying.
No.
Not at all.
Okay, good. Do we have any comments or questions from Rob or Angel before we adjourn?
Well, thanks very much for the great meeting. I think actually on the pollinator, I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation. You know, when I was growing up, there were fields that were hayed all over, and now those fields are not hayed anymore, and there's bushes growing up inside them. So some sort of management that allows us to maintain some of the fields, but at the same time make sure that the pollinators have flowers and places to go. I look forward to helping with that.
Okay, great.
I move to adjourn.
I would just like to say one thing, as it's President's Day and our former president, Jimmy Carter, has gone into hospice, I would just like to commend him on putting solar panels on the roof of the White House, even though they were taken down by his man that came after him.
Absolutely.
Didn't we have
Okay.
to turn the thermostats down to 68 degrees during his?
All right,
Keep my
remembering
house at
Jimmy
60.
Carter.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Motion to
Oh.
adjourn?
I just want to acknowledge that we're coming here on President's Day, awesome commitments of everyone.
And
here.
Martin Luther King Day.
And
Yeah. We seem
Yes.
to hit all the holidays.
I know, the third Monday of the month.
Wait till we meet on Christmas Day.
I have no problem. All right, thank you, everyone.
Oh, Louise, adjourn.
Bruce.